Hello and welcome to the OKPreps Extra Show. I'm Patrick Prince, joined as always by my good friend Barry Lewis. It's about 11:30 on a Wednesday. We're here to talk a little high school football. Barry, let's just jump right in. Marquee game this week is Jenks at Owasso. Jenks had an impressive opening win over Edmond Santa Fe, while Owasso struggled in their loss against Bixby, which a lot of people are going to struggle in their game against Bixby this year, as we found out. I'll ask you some specific questions, but just how you seeing this game shake out?
Well, first of all, it is the number one game of the week, as you can read in my top games column that was in Tuesday's Tulsa World. But Patrick, my goodness, this may be the most loaded week of the season for great games. It was hard to pick just the top five games this week. There are so many good games out being played in the Tulsa area or involving Tulsa area teams that this is going to be a great week. I mean, you got Heritage Hall at Lincoln Christian, always great. The 3A powerhouses got Bixby Sand Springs, two of the best quarterbacks around, and it's just a loaded week. So if there's a week that you're going to pick out of the year to see high school football, other than the state championship week, this might be the week for you. But getting back to your original question, Jenks-Owasso, yes, definitely a dynamite matchup. It'll be interesting to see how Owasso bounces back from the Battle of the Burbs. Some people have asked me, is Owasso no good because Bixby beat them 49-21? Well, I'll tell you, Bixby's going to beat a lot of teams like that, or even worse this year. And so, to me, it was more about Bixby being really, really good as opposed to Owasso not being good. This will be a true test for Owasso and Jenks, because I viewed them coming into the season as pretty evenly matched. I still do. And Jenks coming off a 51-7 win at Edmond Santa Fe. Edmond Santa Fe is nowhere in the league of Bixby, however, so it's really tough to judge when you're looking just at comparative scores.
So Jinx running back Katie Jones, one of the best in the state, some would say the best running back in the state, put up impressive numbers last week, but traditionally he hasn't put up great numbers against Owasso. Is this the week that changes?
It'll be very interesting that in four career games against Owasso, Katie Jones is just not broken loose. He had decent games last year, but he didn't have Katie Jones type games. And when I talk about Katie Jones type games, I'm talking about at least 150 to 200 total yards, really being a factor and usually leading his team to victory. And that just hasn't happened. Um, in fact, his teams are already, he's has not beaten Owasso. He's 0-4 and against Owasso, and he hasn't really had a breakout game statistically. So that's the one team. That is one team that has really given him trouble. Now it'll be interesting to see. This will be the first time he's going against Owasso without Antonio Graham being involved with the planning from Owasso, because of course Antonio Graham, the former Owasso defensive coordinator and head coach, is now over at Union. So, will that have an impact on this game? Uh, or maybe Jenks approaches things differently against Owasso as far as how to utilize Katie Jones this time? That's part of the storyline going into Friday night. And Jenks has lost three in a row to Owasso, including last year's incredible triple overtime classic in the semifinals. So it's promises to be a dynamite matchup.
Katie Jones, 100 yards. You taking the over or under?
I'll take the over on
Okay. All
KD.
right. Okay.
Anytime I'm going to take the over, even though last year, on the average, Owasso held them to under 100. And Owasso's held them under 100. It is in the four games, which, again, that's just mind blowing to me.
125 over or under.
I'm still going to go with KD for over 125.
150.
This sounds like The Price is Right. Some game on The Price is Right, Patrick.
It kind of
It's,
does, doesn't it?
as we say that, this is like I guess as we tape this, this is like, oh, I think we're a day short of the 53rd anniversary of the Price is Right's debut.
Of course you would know that. Of course Barry Lewis knows that.
I remember watching that first episode. Yes, I watched it right before going to watch a classic. It turned out to be a classic pitching duel in St. Louis between Bob Gibson and Tulsa Webster's Carl Morton, in which Carl Morton won. So I did bring this back to a high school connection here in
Well,
Tulsa high schools. Carl Morton said it was like his favorite game ever. He outdueled Bob Gibson that day, 1-0 on the day The Price is Right. Back then it was called The New Price is Right, debuted. But I guess we better get back to football right now.
let me just say we talk often about the freakish memory of Barry Lewis and your ability to recall things. It was just on full display, folks, right there. When Barry Lewis just pulls out of his pocket the debut of The Price is Right, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. Okay. Uh, okay, so
150. Oh, that's right. We're going up.
100,
150. I will go to, I'll say, I'll go still over with Katie.
oh, okay. So Katie's gonna have a monster game. Okay, we'll stick with Jinx for just a second, and then we'll talk about Owasso a little bit. But going back to their win last week, what's more impressive, the fact that the Jinx offense scored 51 points, or that the Jinx defense held Edmond Santa Fe to 7? And
I
that,
would,
that game was 34-0 at one point.
I would say I'll go with the defense, but again, it was very similar to their opener against Santa Fe last year, which was 48-3. So I don't know really how much to make of that, except that I may change my mind. Maybe the offense is more impressive, although you do have Katie Jones, the best player in the area and arguably the best player of the state, on your side. It was still a case where Jenks was having its quarterback make his first varsity start. And so obviously there are some doubts there. Whereas last year they had Owen Jones returning, and you didn't really have any questions at quarterback. Landon Kazar making his first start, and it went really well, obviously, for Jenks. And so I think maybe that was more impressive.
Fair enough. Okay, let's talk about Owasso a little bit. Coming off that game against Bixby, what if you're Owasso? What are the things you most need to correct? Again, and I thought you were very in your point, Barry. Like it's not a function of Owasso not being any good. They suddenly didn't get bad. They just played a really loaded Bixby team, who's like you said, a lot of people are going to make look a little silly this year, frankly. So if you're Owasso, where do you start?
Think you've just got to get Drew Frankenfield doing what Drew does. And they make a big thing about his completion percentage. And last week against Bixby, it looked like they were trying to put more on his plate, which you expect. He's not a first year starter, sophomore anymore. He's an experienced junior with now 14 varsity starts under his belt. And so they were trying to do more with him, throw more downfield. And yeah, you want to get the ball downfield because Owasso's got a great core of receivers, three
Yeah.
guys who could play major college football. And so his completion percentage is probably not going to be quite as good because he's going to be doing some more challenging throws this year. But I think you don't want to totally get away from the short game, high percentage passes, especially early in the game when you want to get him going into a rhythm. So I think maybe they'll get back to what made him and the offense successful last year. So I would look for them to do that. And also it's complementary football again. The running game needs to get going. Running game, even when Drew Frankenfield has been really successful, the running game's been a big part of that.
Yeah.
And last week, until the fourth quarter, when Owasso was going against Bixby's backups, the Owasso running game was sort of bogged down. And one thing they can definitely clean up, which should be easy to do, well, easier said than done, um, they've got to eliminate the motion penalties, especially in the first quarter last week. I think they had 7.
Mm,
And you just can't have, you had 4 in the opening drive.
yeah.
You just can't have that, especially when you're playing high quality teams. And I think that they'll get that done. Owasso seemed to settle down as far as that was concerned later in the game. So they've got to eliminate the penalties for the most part, especially motion penalties, and I think they will. Because face it, Bill Blankenship's a coaching legend, and his teams are always going to play good fundamental football. And so I expect to see more from that, more good fundamentals, eliminate the penalties. I expect to see that from Owasso in this game, and they need it. They've got to do that in order to beat a high quality team like Jenks.
Yeah. Is Bixby going to go undefeated in the regular season?
I think they've really, with all due respect to Sand Springs, which they play this week, I think the big test, the one really major obstacle to that is Jenks playing at Jenks on September 26th in a district opener. Just because Jenks has had a bit of success recently, not many teams can say that. So Jenks is not, regardless of Jenks's outcome this week or next week against Union, Jenks is going to come in with confidence that it can beat Bixby, just because they've seen it happen in recent years, and not many teams can say that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one big obstacle, unless somebody from the West, and this could occur unless somebody from the West comes from out of nowhere to become really, really good. I think that Jenks is really the one major threat to Bixby going undefeated in the regular season.
I thought Travis Hill and Broken Arrow had an impressive debut. What'd you think of that?
Very much so. Whenever you go over to Arkansas and come away with a three-touchdown victory, that's a good thing. Definitely a good start to the Travis Hill era. From what I understand, because I just saw highlights of the game, didn't really see the game play by play, that they look good. Jeremiah Satemba, their quarterback, and our Bill Knight Automotive Staff Choice as Player of the Week, had a super game. I really expect big things from him this year. I think last year was his first year as a starter, really set the foundation for an exciting senior year. And so, very promising debut for Broken Arrow this season. And now a real test. Harbor's a decent team, uh, not a great team. This week, the level of competition goes up as they play Fayetteville, which won the 7A state championship in 2023. And went 8-3 last year. Broken Arrow gave Fayetteville a great game last year. Broken Arrows up 16-0 on them, wound up losing by a touchdown. So I think if Broken Arrow can come away with a win or even just a really very competitive loss, I think that will set a tone for some really exciting things that will really bode well for Broken Arrow moving forward in this season.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, Patrick, you were at Booker T. Washington last week to see a very interesting opener as the Hornets hosted Muskogee. Just what were your takeaways from the Hornets' 21-14 victory?
Yeah, when I saw the schedule come out, I was like, that's the game I'm going to go to. I just thought it'd be a great game, and watching games at Booker T is always fun and exciting. My two takeaways were this: the Booker T defense is pretty good. They're going to stop some people this year. Um, and they looked great on Friday against Muskogee. But my other takeaway was, and it's easy to say this after the fact, hindsight's always 2020. But given how Muskogee was struggling to move the ball against a very stout Booker T defense, I was waiting to see Stylen McHenry play quarterback. Kaysen Delgado got the start. And I'm not saying all their offensive struggles were his fault. It wasn't. It never is. But at some point, you just got to look for a spark. And when it's not really working, I'm like, just throw in the next guy and let's just see. And Stylen McHenry did come in, and he was electric in limited duty. And and he's just fun to watch. He had that scramble for a 70-yard touchdown pass, and suddenly you felt where Booker T was in control most of the game. Suddenly it was a game, and the last 5 minutes or so were very exciting. I don't know what Dale Condit's going to do this Friday at quarterback, but of course, I saw Stylen McHenry play in mop-up duty at Wagner last year, backing up Cale Charbonneau. And that kid just had, you and I have talked about this, Barry. Stylen McHenry just has a look. This kid just looks the part. And I was really excited to see him be the starter at Wagner this year. Of course, he follows Condit to Muskogee, and I figured he'd start there. He didn't in week one. Maybe he'll start this Friday. We don't know. But that was my biggest takeaway. Like when Stylen got in, things got interesting, and he just, and I granted limited duty. He a very small sample size, Barry, but some players just kind of have a flair for drama and a flair for improvising and a flair for big plays, and he kind of gives that vibe off to me a little bit. I don't know. Did you watch the live stream even after the fact? Did you see any of that?
I watched a good portion of the game afterwards. After I got back from my game, I DVR'd it, and yeah, Stylen McHenry. I think when you got two quarterbacks who have got such different styles, that that if one quarterback is just not working against it some night, you just change it up. And I mean, again, Dale has won six state titles and I've won zero. So he knows his team better than I do. But just for me, I would like to have seen what it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if they would have went to McHenry a little earlier. I think we've talked about this before. I remember the first time I saw him was at a Wagner practice, spring practice before last season. And of course, that's when Wagner had Cale Charbonneau, so you knew who the Wagner quarterback was. But like, who is this guy who is not Cale Charbonneau? He just like the first few 10 minutes after I arrived at practice, I thought, who is this superstar quarterback? Wagner's got a superstar quarterback. He just again gave that vibe, and he looks the part. And so I'm really high on Stylen McHenry and seeing what he can do. And I think that is something that can be a big asset for a team when you've got two quarterbacks with totally different styles. That if it's not working for one of them, you throw the other team's defense a changeup and go with the other. So
Absolutely. Now Stylen McHenry's he's highly I'm stumbling over my words. He plays defense. He's very instrumental on that side of the ball. So perhaps, maybe Coach Condit doesn't want to, play him too much. I don't know. But just to point that out, Stylen McHenry does play defense and is quite instrumental on that side of the ball. Well, Barry, before we get out of here, let's get into recruiting a little bit. You've talked about this receiver and you've of course written about him, Rejoice Christian. I'm going to let you pronounce his name because I'll just butcher it. You seem to kind of have it down. But a certain receiver just committed to the University of Oklahoma this week. Tell us about that.
ZZ Okwafulueze.
That's pretty good.
Again, what a story. He wasn't even playing football as a sophomore because he thought it would be best to focus on basketball. Rejoice coach Brent Marley convinces him last spring, spring and summer of 2024, that hey, why don't you come back out for football? You could be like Dakota Terrell from Pensacola, who was signing with Missouri. You can be like him. You got similar height, and you could be that guy. You got that potential. And lo and behold, here he is a year later, committing to OU. And it's really funny that it was just in that first game of last year that against Noah, right off the bat, that the play that really caught OU's attention, the highlight was again in their season opener. That So right away last year he caught OU's attention. So uh, what a long way he's come from not even playing football at this time 2 years ago to being an OU commit. And he won't
Yeah.
be, he's not the only Power Four recruit on that team because you got Camion Compton Nero, who is also being pursued by OU, and about everybody as an athlete. Don't know which side of the ball. I think people were looking at him as a defensive back primarily, but they might want to look at him as a quarterback too. And I think they are. In his first game as a quarterback, as well, I shouldn't say it was his first game because he filled in at quarterback last year and did some great things in limited time, filling in for an all-state quarterback, Cale Marley, last year when
Hmm.
Cale was injured. But Camion Comptonero had about 500 total yards last week, and he picked off 2 passes on defense. And
Yeah.
so he's a very exciting recruit. So what a so for Rejoice Class A team to have 2 Power 4 players recruits on its team, wow, what a luxury!
No doubt about it. If you're a local high school football fan and you just want to go watch some good ball on a Friday night, go to a Rejoice Christian game. Check those guys out.
And that's one of those really good games this week. I mean, there are so many of them. Rejoice is hosting Cassia Hall this week. So that would be a very interesting game to check out. And we didn't even talk about Stillwater's playing at Union. That's another great game this week. Remember, Stillwater stunned Union last year in overtime after Union made a furious comeback. So Union trying to bounce back from a loss to Bentonville last week. Um, it's not going to be an easy task against Stillwater.
Where's that game?
It's at Union Tuttle Stadium.
Yep. Yeah,
So many
that
great games. See
I
that's such a good game, and did he make the top 5 games list?
well, it's funny when you said that. That's what I thought in my mind. I'm like, I wasn't even on your list, but like you said, it's such a loaded week. It's tough to crack the top five this week. A lot of great games.
Yeah, it's that your view's got 2 of them on, and neither of them are on my top games list. And they're both really good because they've got 2 really good games. They've got Stillwater Union and Booker T. Del City.
Yep, good ones. I assume you're going to be at Owasso for Owasso Jinx. That is a 7:30 kickoff in Owasso. I assume you'll be there.
I will be there.
Where's Bill Hastings going to be this week?
Bill Hastings going to be watching Bixby at Sand Springs, where you've got the matchup of the 2 quarterbacks who in the upcoming, and this is a teaser for our updated all world rankings that will appear in Thursday's Tulsa World. The 2 top ranked quarterbacks now in the Tulsa area, Easton Webb and Carson Kirby.
All right, we'll call that a show this week. I'm Patrick Prince. He's Barry Lewis. Appreciate you watching. We'll be back next week.